So I didn't prepare anything for my speech tonight, which usually means I'm going to go completely wild. It's on film, and I'm going to regret quite a few things that I've said, but I will survive, which I do. If you were an alien looking down on Earth, and you had to allocate capital, how would you allocate it to countries and to sectors? How much would you allocate to Africa? What percentage? And how much would you allocate to South Africa? Well, I think the alien would allocate 1% to Africa and 0 to South Africa, and rightly so. When I hear these people, some of whom I admire, talk about green shoots, they're lunatics. There are no green shoots, none. And one of my best friends, who I've known since I was 10 years old, when I said to him, I need to put a speech together for the Biz conference, which by the way is next week, and I am being asked to talk, is South Africa investable? I can't see a single reason for a foreigner to invest in this country, not one reason. And he said, Rob, don't be the grumpy old guy, I'm 65 now, 66 next month in October. Don't be that grumpy old guy that just says bad things. You've got to give some hope. And I'm struggling. I'm really struggling to find that hope. I'm struggling to find anything about South Africa that would allow me to ask my international friends to commit capital. And I really mean that. Or to have my 2 younger children stay here beyond university or maybe, matric or maybe university. And my wife asked me not to say it. I would say, if you're an 18-year-old child or a kid that's just finished university, I think they should leave this country. There is no future unless you're the son and daughter of those 100 families that are black billionaire enrichments. It is not worth staying. And I had a game of golf about 3-4 months ago. And I normally just like playing with friends. It's quite hard, 9 holes or 18 holes with someone you've never met. And they either dislike me on the first tee, or they know it's Rob Hersov, or they want to ask me questions about politics and the future of South Africa, and it's tiring, you know? And in my group, there was a black guy who lives in southern suburbs in Cape Town in the mining industry. And he is one of those top 100 black billionaire enrichment dudes. And I sort of knew who he was. And I said, trying to be amusing, I have written a letter, an open letter to Gwede Mantashe to say, Gwede, you're a Madala, you're completely useless, you've destroyed the mining industry, you need to retire. By the way, I published it on Biz News, and it's way tougher than that. Go read it. And he said, why are you going to do that? I said, because Gwede's a moron. He's a destructive, ideological moron. By the way, a moron has a mental age of 8 to 12. I just want to define it. So I'm being quite generous to Gwede. And he defines everything he's doing in ideological terms. But the reality is, no new mine has opened in South Africa for 10 years. We were, and by the way, African Rainbow Minerals was Anglo-Gold Mining. Gwede spent 6 years in the private sector, and I'm embarrassed to say he worked for Anglo-Gold. He worked for my father. What a bad job my dad did. My dad turns 103 weeks on. Extraordinary man. But on that note, Gwede learned nothing. And in this letter, I was saying, you know, we had 500,000 people in the mining industry. We now have 250,000. Not a single mine has opened in 10 years. Mining licenses do not get issued. There's a system called a cadastre. We don't even have one that works. You can't even tell where your mining application is in the process. But the guy I played golf with, well, couldn't have been happier. Why? Because this crazy person, Rob Hersov, was encouraging Gwede to fix the mining industry in this country, to fix the mining charter, to encourage foreign direct investment. And my golf partner didn't want that to happen. Why? Because foreign investment means competition. And competition means he might not be able to continue feeding at the trough. They don't want competition because they just want to break and steal. And the ANC logo should be, we break so that we can steal. In a functioning democracy and a functioning economy, it's quite hard to steal because people like Mark and Martin and others can point out the corruption, can point out exactly who is breaking and stealing. But when you destroy democracy, when you destroy an economy, it's a whole lot easier to break and steal. And that's exactly what the ANC want. But worse than that, they want to keep people uneducated and stupid and not part of the formal economy. Why? So they can bribe them with social grants, keep them stupid, keep them reliant on the ANC, keep them dependent on social grants. So Davi mentioned the categories of people who are completely reliant on the ANC. He called them civil servants, he called them cadres, he called them ANC ministers and councillors, but he mentioned it, the 28 million people who live and die on the social grants. And I remember when Cyril proudly said, we have 18 million people receiving social grants. Proudly. It's now 28 million. This country is doomed. It is doomed. We are in a death spiral. I'm telling you right now, Helen may win Gauteng. She cannot fix it. It is impossible. It takes 10 years to build a good business. Business people, I mean, you might get lucky. You might have some tech wildcat business, hit an oil well. You might get lucky. But I'm telling you right now, for the business people in the room, it takes 10 years. 10 years to build a good business. It takes 1 year to destroy it. You have a bad manager with bad decisions. In 1 year, you can destroy it. And the ANC has destroyed every single state-owned enterprise. Every single ministry they've touched, they have destroyed it. Either through incompetence or through intentional design, disguised as ideology. And transformation and BEE and EWC is theft disguised as transformation. DEI is theft disguised as transformation. It is anti-merit. I wish I could give you good news. I wish I could give you green shoots. And the green shoots you hear about, the ransom is briefly. Why? Because the international commodity markets are moving. And we are just a recipient of that. Not one single green shoot in this country, not one, is the result of ANC policy. And 20%, the United Nations says 15%, but I would say 20%. 20% of our GDP is the illicit economy. Gangsters, cadres, theft. Darwin, what do you think of that number? The last time was 15%. It is no doubt more. And it's not just black people stealing. There are white guys, Somalis, internationals, Algerians, you name it, pouring in because the systems have broken down. And the only defense we have left, the only area that the areas that haven't been captured by this gangster ANC state are organizations sitting in this room and fighting a rear guard action. Errol, Free Market Foundation, David Ansara, Russell Lamberti, Martin van Staden, Michael Louis, our wonderful international guest, Chris Wyatt, Darby Rook, the people on the panel, Donald Brown, you people in the room, you're it. Where are the interfaith churches? Do they stand up? Haven't heard them. Where are the corporate chieftains of this country? Cowards, colluders. I can name on my hand the corporate chieftains that stand up and call out the ANC. On my hand. And a number of them who are friends of mine call me privately and say, Rob, keep what you're doing. We back you all the way. We can't speak publicly. And then there's always a because we'll lose our license, because we'll this and that. It disgusts me. Who's standing up? Who's still fighting for our country? You are, you are, you are, you are, you, and you people in the room. We're it. We've been left behind. Where's the good news in this? There isn't any. All I can say is, it's still the greatest country in the world to live if you have some money, if you live in an enclave, a gated community, a private area, if you can educate your children with private education, if you have a borehole, if you have electricity, if you have extraordinary people like Michael Louis and Errol and Mark defending you, civil society is the last bastion of saving this country from disaster. I'm going to read you something. What have I said that I would have regretted? I'll read you something. And this isn't from me, but it's some guy called Sean Scritter. I have no idea who Sean Scritter is. Find me Sean Scritter thing. But I read this thing. Do you know Sean Scritter? No. So I'm going to read this because it's so extraordinary. Okay, I've edited it. What happens to South Africa when decline becomes permanent? Have you read this? South Africans keep asking, how much worse can things get? And that is the wrong question. The question is what happens when decline becomes permanent, when the destructive ANC policies make their final impact. For more than 30 years, we have adapted to failure. When electricity failed, we adapted. Solar, wind, generators. When policing failed, we adapted. Gun licenses, alarm systems, private security. When municipalities failed, we adapted. Extraordinary local initiatives like Mafubi First. When water, if you haven't heard of Mafubi First, go have a look. It's some little town near Frankfurt, Villiers, and the Free State. They rolled up their sleeves to sort themselves out. When water systems failed, we adapted. Boreholes. When roads deteriorated, we adapted. We filled in potholes ourselves. When corruption was exposed, we adapted. We just got PTSD and looked the other way. Every crisis became another inconvenience to work around. Boer marker plan. Every failure became just another expense for us. And every expense became another sacrifice. What South Africans call resilience, and we call ourselves resilient, today would have been considered unacceptable 20 years ago. And the danger is not the collapse of institutions. It's the collapse of expectations. South Africa no longer expects functioning municipalities. We just don't expect it. We don't expect reliable electricity. We don't expect effective policing. We don't expect government accountability. We expect failure, and then we congratulate ourselves for surviving it. We feel brave. We feel resilient. But that is not resilience. That is surrender disguised as resilience. And the average South African is now paying to replace functions that government was created to provide. We have private security, solar systems, generators, water tanks, boreholes. We have our own medical aid, our own private security, armed response tracking systems, insurance products designed around government failure. And every year, more responsibility moves from government to us citizens. Every year, more authority remains with the state, remains in Pretoria. And that is the imbalance no one in South Africa is discussing. And a citizen who spends most of his income defending himself from decline is not building a future for himself, herself, or your children. You're just preserving the present. Your children will inherit the same or a worse burden, and then their children inherit it again. And eventually, a whole generation grows up believing this is simply how South Africa operates. And that is the true danger. Not that South Africa collapses today or tomorrow. Not that there is some dramatic event on the horizon. But decline becomes institutionalized, permanent, accepted, normal. History shows that societies rarely lose their freedoms all at once. They lose them gradually as independence becomes more expensive and dependence becomes necessary. The question South Africans should be asking is not whether the country is getting worse. The evidence you heard today already supports that. The question is, at what point does survival stop being resilience and start becoming acceptance? Because once you accept deterioration as normal, the battle is no longer against corruption, crime, infrastructure collapsing, or incompetent governments. The battle is against the belief that nothing better is possible. I believe we are there today. We look for green shoots that don't exist. We put hope ahead of experience. We believe in our hearts we can make a difference and we can change things. I believe it is too late. The damage is irreparable. How do you get rid of the cavers? How do you get rid of the incompetence? How does Helen fix Gauteng? She might fix the potholes. She might fix the water. But when my friend Warris Stock confronted the gangsters that had ambushed and hijacked buildings in Johannesburg, and he called me that morning to say how excited he was to be working with me, he got shot in cold blood on the street. The minute you separate these gangsters, empowered by the ANC, from the money they are stealing, you will be killed. I wish I could give you hope. The only hope is in this room is the work done by Errol and his team at RSCA, CRA, and the likes of the other extraordinary people here who give every day of their lives, speaking on behalf of our beautiful country and trying to fix things. And if we're to write checks, we need to write them now and get behind something like this and sue Cyril Ramaphosa and his gangsters in the ANC for crimes against humanity. These are checks we need to write. This is time to get behind something that really matters and makes a difference. Errol, thank you for everything you do. We will support you.